The rain hammered against the cracked windows of the small house James Carter once called his sanctuary. The leaking roof dripped in the corner, each droplet echoing in the silence like a cruel reminder of how far he had fallen. Only 2 months ago, James had been a respected project manager at one of the top firms in the city. He had a stable job, a modest car, and a wife he adored more than life itself, but life has a way of stripping away illusions. James sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-empty coffee mug, the liquid long gone cold. He hadn't spoken a word in hours. His wife, Rebecca, was upstairs talking on the phone. Her laughter echoed through the thin walls, high-pitched and sharp, slicing through James's chest like a blade. He had heard that laugh before, years ago, when she used to laugh at his jokes, when she looked at him as if he was her entire world. But tonight, it wasn't for him. The footsteps came before the words. Rebecca descended the stairs slowly, deliberately, as if she wanted him to feel the weight of her presence. Her heels clicked against the wooden floor. She was dressed in a crimson dress, her hair styled, her perfume strong enough to drown out the damp smell of the house. "Going somewhere?" James asked softly, his voice hoarse. Rebecca smirked. "Out with friends. You wouldn't know them." James looked up, his eyes tired but steady. "Daniel." For the first time, her smirk faltered. Only for a second. Then it returned sharper than before. "At least Daniel has ambition. At least he can keep a woman happy." The words sliced through James more brutally than any knife could. Daniel was his best friend, the man he had trusted, the man he had invited into their home countless times. Rebecca leaned forward, her lips curling into a cruel smile.
"Do you think I married you for love, James?"
"Do you think love pays the bills? You lost your job and suddenly you expect me to live in poverty like some servant? You're weak. You're pathetic. And I refuse to waste my youth with a man who has nothing left to offer." James's knuckles tightened around the mug. His heart thundered in his chest, but his face remained calm. "I sold my car so you could have your surgery last year. Did that mean nothing to you?" Rebecca's laughter rang out, loud and cruel. "You think that makes you noble?" "No, James, that makes you a fool. You gave up your only asset, and for what? For me? Love doesn't buy me the life I deserve. Luxury does. Power does. And Daniel understands that." "You never did." As if on cue, a car horn honked outside. Rebecca grabbed her purse and strutted toward the door. But before leaving, she turned back one last time. Her words dripped with venom. "This house, it's mine now. You're nothing. Daniel is everything you'll never be." The door slammed shut, leaving James in silence. The rain outside grew heavier, drowning out the sound of his shallow breathing. For a long moment, James didn't move. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply sat there, staring at the empty doorway where his wife had just stood. And then, slowly, deliberately, he placed the mug down, stood up, and walked to the small drawer near the hallway. Inside was a folder, thick with documents Rebecca had never seen. He pulled it out, brushed the dust from its surface, and opened it. The corner of his lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Rebecca thought she had destroyed him. She thought she had taken everything. But James Carter was no ordinary man, and soon, very soon, Rebecca would learn what it meant to betray him. James didn't sleep that night. He sat in silence, listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall. Every second reminded him that a chapter of his life had just ended. But unlike Rebecca, who believed she had won, James knew better. By dawn, he had packed a small suitcase. No anger, no shouting match, no desperate begging. He walked around the house one last time, touching the furniture they had bought together, the walls they had painted side by side. There were memories carved into every corner, but memories meant nothing when they were poisoned. When Rebecca returned in the morning, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't hers, she found James already waiting by the door. "You're leaving?" she asked, feigning surprise. James nodded. "Yes, but remember one thing, Rebecca, silence doesn't mean defeat. It means patience." She laughed, tossing her purse on the couch. "Patience? James, you have nothing to be patient for. You're broke. You're jobless. You're a failure. Walk out that door and you'll never recover." James said nothing more. He simply opened the door, stepped out into the morning light, and disappeared down the street. The first weeks felt like paradise for Rebecca. She paraded through the city with Daniel at her side. Draped in expensive clothes she demanded he buy, her laughter loud, her confidence overflowing. She posted pictures online, wine glasses clinking, luxury dinners, designer bags, painting a picture of the perfect new life. To outsiders, it looked like she had upgraded. Daniel, the ambitious and sharp man, had rescued her from a failing marriage. Rebecca soaked in the attention, convinced she had made the right choice. But behind closed doors, cracks were already forming. Daniel was charming, yes, but he wasn't James. He didn't have James's calm patience, nor his quiet strength. His ambition was tainted with arrogance, and his money, well, his money wasn't as deep as Rebecca assumed. One evening, she glanced at Daniel's bank statement by accident. The numbers didn't add up. "You said you're making 6 figures, she said, frowning. Daniel stiffened. "I will soon. James just kept me underpaid. But now that he's out of the way, I'll climb." Rebecca tilted her head. "Out of the way?" "James was fired. He has nothing. Why does he still haunt you?" Daniel didn't answer. He poured himself another glass of whiskey, his jaw tight. Rebecca shrugged, but unease lingered in her eyes. Meanwhile, James met with his attorney in the quiet study of his mansion. The heavy oak desk was covered with papers, trust documents, contracts, financial statements. His attorney, a sharp man named Richard Hale, adjusted his tie. "Mr. Carter, everything is ready. The house is fully secured under the family trust. Rebecca has no claim to it. As for Daniel, he's still employed under your holding company." James leaned forward. "Terminate him, publicly. Make it clean. Make it humiliating." Richard smirked. "It will be done." James tapped his fingers on the desk. "Rebecca believes she's moved on to a better life. I want her to taste luxury, to believe she's untouchable. And then—" He paused, his eyes narrowing with quiet fire. "We'll pull it all away. At the precise moment she feels most secure, she'll lose everything." Richard nodded. "Calculated destruction." "Exactly." 2 months later, Rebecca's perfect fantasy was already fraying. Daniel had been distant, constantly stressed about work. His promotion never came. In fact, whispers in the office suggested something was wrong. Rebecca, frustrated, confronted him one night. "Why haven't you been promoted?" "You said you were next in line," Daniel snapped, slamming his fist on the table. "Do you think it's that easy? Do you think success comes overnight? James sabotaged me. I know it. Somehow he's behind this." Rebecca's laugh was hollow. "James, don't flatter him. He's living in some dingy apartment by now, drowning in bills." But Daniel's face told a different story. He wasn't sure. Days later, the truth struck like a thunderbolt. Daniel was called into HR, handed a termination letter, and escorted out of the building like a criminal. The humiliation burned. Employees whispered as he walked past, some even snickering. Rebecca was furious when she heard the news. "What do you mean you were fired?" "You promised me stability." Daniel downed a drink, his hands trembling. "It was James. It had to be James. He still has influence." Rebecca froze. A small, icy seed of doubt planted itself in her chest. Had James really been the weak, broken man she thought he was? Or had she gravely underestimated him? The cab ride was quiet. The driver glanced at James through the rearview mirror, sensing the heaviness in the man's expression. But James wasn't broken. His mind was already working, calculating, strategizing. The cab drove past the gray neighborhoods, the broken sidewalks, and the shops just opening for the day. But then, after nearly an hour, the scenery changed. The roads widened, the air cleared, and towering iron gates came into view. Beyond them lay rolling green lawns, a winding driveway, and at the very end, a mansion so vast it looked like something out of a dream. The gates opened automatically as the cab approached. The driver's eyes widened. "Sir, this is your house?" James gave the faintest of smiles. One of them. The mansion stood tall with marble pillars and glass windows that reflected the rising sun. A fountain sprayed water high into the air, and perfectly trimmed hedges lined the path. The silence here was different from the silence of the old house. This was the silence of power, of wealth, of security. Inside, the butler, an older gentleman named Richard, greeted him. "Welcome home, Mr. Carter. Shall I prepare breakfast?" James nodded. "Yes, and call my attorney. It's time we reviewed the trust documents." "As you wish, sir." James walked through the mansion slowly, his footsteps echoing against the polished marble floor. He paused before a large painting on the wall, himself, Rebecca, and Daniel, taken at a Christmas party 2 years ago. Rebecca's smile in the painting was radiant. Daniel's arm casually placed around James's shoulder. James stared at it for a long time, then turned away. The painting would come down soon. At breakfast, Richard placed the morning paper beside James's plate. "If I may say so, sir, she underestimates you." James sipped his coffee calmly. "That's exactly what I want. Let her believe she's won. Let Daniel believe he's clever. Their arrogance will be their downfall." Richard adjusted his glasses. "Shall I prepare the initial filings, sir?" James leaned back in his chair, the faintest glimmer of satisfaction crossing his face. "Yes, Rebecca thinks the house is hers. She doesn't realize it's been protected by a trust since the day we bought it. She thinks Daniel can give her a better life. She doesn't realize Daniel works for me." Richard allowed himself a small smile. "Poetic, sir." James looked out at the sprawling gardens through the window. The world thought he was a broken man. His wife thought she had destroyed him. His best friend thought he was clever enough to steal. But the truth was simple. James Carter had only just begun.